Welcome back to my channel. I'm the Spellsinger, and this is my ongoing review of the Fighting Fantasy series of gamebooks. And in this review, I'm going to give you a quick look at this title with its book number. I'll read the blurb, we'll check out the plot and look at the locations. Then we'll look at the game mechanics and the adventure sheet. I'll run the artwork through this video, we'll have a chat about the art, and then we'll look at my own likes and dislikes, any fun facts, any errors, a summary with a score, and then we'll finish with a shout out. But before I get into that, I just want to say thanks to 5 random recent subscribers. So a big thank you to Deep Thought 42, Matt Turner, Joseph F, Hoodoo, and Tougher Toast. Thank you, and thanks. It's great to have more people on board. So I must be doing something right? So yeah, this is book 47. This is The Crimson Tide. This was published way back in 1992, and it was written by Paul Mason. And this cover art here was by Alan Craddock, but all the internal illustrations, all the inside goodness, was by Terry Oakes. So this book, the blurb, reads like this. Vengeance or death? Civil war racks the Isle of the Dawn. You are a young farmer, unaffected by the turmoil until the chaos strikes. A roving band of mercenaries ransacks your village, killing your father and enslaving your mother. This injustice must be righted. Arcane creatures, martial monks, and battle-hardened warriors must all be overcome as your quest for justice leads you from your quiet village to the very court of the God King. Yeah, right. The plot and the locations for The Crimson Tide. Now, The Crimson Tide is set on the Isle of the Dawn, and the events of the book take place after those described in a previous book, Black Vein Prophecy. So those of you that remember that review, same place. And here you begin as a child whose father obviously has been killed, as mentioned in that blurb, and whose mother has been kidnapped by those fiendish mercenaries. And the story follows this child's progression, or your progression, towards adulthood and essentially revenge. It's a revenge story. And the plot is set around these mercenaries that have taken your village out and fled, and involved in a civil war between the mayor and fair. And the story is one of vengeance. So on your quest for vengeance, you can become a monk, a rebel, a sailor, even a gladiator. And some of these career paths may even lead to victory, potentially. Others may not. But the revenge plot is not as intriguing as the plot from the Black Vein Prophecy I found, or even Slaves of the Abyss for that matter. Although the way the story develops over the years, or a number of years, is quite interesting. So the characters, they're all a mixed bunch. There are quite a few enigmatic types, but none of them are particularly developed, which is a bit of a shame. The plot motive itself may not sound original, but the approach and the execution is miles from that standard hack and slash of those early game books. So in terms of location, if you see this map here, we are in Titan. Here is Alancia, Kull, and the Old World. And this adventure is set in the Southern Hemisphere, here on the Isles of the Dawn. So yeah, you can see how close it is, and like I say, same place as Black Vein Prophecy. So we're back on the Isles of the Dawn. Right, the game mechanics and the adventure sheet for The Crimson Tide. Now, because you begin the book aged 13, your attribute scores may eventually exceed their initial values, which become fixed once you reach the dizzy heights of 18. Age is an attribute of the book, and due to your young age at the outset, it has an impact, quite a high impact, on the gameplay. So, also, at each age increase, you're also able to restore your temporary stamina to the permanent figure. So that's quite a good thing, handy. Now, the Crimson Tide also introduces the attribute of ferocity. which is kind of determined by a 1d6 roll with the addition of half of your stamina score. Now, should your ferocity score fall to 0, you are instructed to turn to reference 200, which reads a bit like this. You have attained inner peace. Your desire for revenge no longer clouds your mind. Add 2 to your skill. If you ever have to roll the dice and compare the result to your ferocity, you may now always choose not to be ferocious if you wish. That is, you may choose the greater than option. Now turn back to the paragraph you came from. So that's quite a cool little mechanic. So like it said, for each age increase, you've got to lower your ferocity by 2 points. And you begin the adventure with nothing more than a wooden sword. And although this may sound a bit harsh, it kind of makes sense. You're only a kid, but you can pick up a couple of provisions right at the beginning of the book. So that's handy. Now, beginning the book as a child means you are initially quite weak. And your stats are designed to reflect this. So skill begins with a single dice roll. So just a 1d6. Stamina is only a 2d6. But the luck is standard 1d6 plus 6. So that might be a bit harsh, but it's kind of logical. In real terms, as a child cannot have the same physical strength or weapon mastery as, say, an adult might. There's no reason, however, why a child cannot be naturally lucky as an adult, so they've left that mechanic well alone. Well done, Paul Mason. And as you get older, your skill and stamina also increases in line with whatever it is you're doing. So, for example, physical work, your stamina may rise, or if it's learning combat skills, your skill might rise. So, quite a realistic element, and once you reach the age of 18, your current skill and stamina become initial values and won't change again. This is the only fighting fantasy game book to deal with this idea, and it gives a kind of realistic RPG feel to it as your character develops through this narrative. For this game book, you will need to look out for clues, look out for code words, in the exact order that they show up as well. So yeah, you've got to look out for that. And work on your mechanics like controlling your rage, your ferocity, while it's growing physically more powerful, which is your skill and your stamina, and making some wise choices at decision points. So going on a killing spree will get you nowhere in this adventure. This is more geared to realism for your growing character. The code word concept is really good. It's a good way of controlling plot logic, but also the sequence of certain code words holds the key to the only way of actually completing this book. So there are lots of code words to be found, but only a few of them are essential clues. Others are just control the plot flow, and some even force you down some red herring paths, so watch out for those. It's tough to find the messages in the code words, and the one true path is rendered sort of incredibly tight and quite linear as well. But yeah, you kind of get used to it after a while. Now, that leads to the adventure sheet, which you can see here. So you've got your usual, your skill, your stamina, your luck. But here, you've also got your ferocity. So like I said, when the ferocity is 0, you get to turn to that page 200. So there's a little reminder there for you. You've also got your age. So you start at 13, and then when age increases, you lose 2 ferocity. So that's something to remember as you progress through this book. You've got a place for your money as well, your equipment list, any provisions remaining. There aren't too many items to pick up in this book, but there is a place there in the notes where you can chuck all your code words if you want. So yeah, pretty good adventure sheet, all round, pretty good. Right, artwork. So the original cover of the book was designed and illustrated by Alan Craddock. Suitably weird. The interior illustrations by Terry Oakes. The book is very good for its artwork. It's quite well suited. It doesn't necessarily have a particularly polished look to it, but it goes well with this sort of dreamlike prose that's on offer in this adventure. There is a kind of dark mysticism look to Terry Oakes' work. Some of the images are sort of quite imposing, frightening, and much of the art is from a kind of lower perspective, which kind of makes sense because you start the book as a infant. You're only 13, so you're going to be looking up a lot of time at these imposing kind of characters. The art is It certainly emphasises the Far Eastern context. But as for Alan Craddock's art, his front cover, it's quite a busy front cover. If you look at that, there's a lot going on there. It's kind of hard to work out exactly what is going on. The shark men, I don't even know if they're in this book. I certainly didn't come across them, so yeah. But yeah, the whole image almost looks like it relates to a completely different book. But I don't know. It's kind of got that Fu Manchu feel to it. Now, my favourite picture is this port here on reference 83, which I'll read to you. So it says here, as the boat passes, you manage to grab its steering oar and haul yourself painfully up, finally dragging yourself over the rail. You collapse, panting on deck, scarcely aware of the curse of the surprised steersman. When you recover, a well-bred face is studying you intently. The wretch can join the crew. You were telling me this morning that we were short-handed, it remarks to a stocky fellow. The captain puts you to work, swabbing the deck as the craft sets sail down the river towards the coast. Its ultimate goal is the capital, Zengi. The powerful man whose boat this is plans to rejoin the ministry there. You are given plenty of work on the coast-hugging journey, and any complaints are met with a sound thrashing. Add 1 year to your age and 3 points to your permanent stamina. So yeah, you kind of get this really nice feel of this port, and the people that live there, all the things that kind of go on there. So it's a really nice piece of artwork. And a lot of it all really captures that kind of Eastern feel to it. Right, my own likes and dislikes. So I love the nods to Conan the Barbarian in this book. You've got the child witnessing the death of the parents, goes through the trials to kind of build himself up, physically and spiritually, and finally gets revenge as an adult. So that's Conan, isn't it, essentially? There's enough variation and interesting incidents throughout the game's plot for you to kind of not notice this unless you are a big Conan fan. But the appearance of this human snake-end baddie is a little harder to overlook as a Conan nod. I love the unique experience. The story is highly original, and hats off to Paul Mason for trying to do something a little bit different with the format at a time when things were getting a little bit samey. There's no doubt that this book is very difficult, but there is enough here to compel you to keep searching for the solutions and that true path. The errors let it down slightly, which we'll go into in a minute, but then there's not enough of them to spoil the whole gamebook as a whole. Right, fun facts. The book contains a reference to the earlier fighting fantasy book, Sword of the Samurai, and in that you can encounter a character from the Hachiman. So that's the region which the earlier book is set. So a nice little nod back to earlier books. Now, The Crimson Tide ties in with Paul Mason's fighting fantasy book, Black Vein Prophecy. Like I mentioned earlier, you can meet several characters from the Black Vein Prophecy, including your character, from the successful ending of that book, which is now a king. So unlike other fighting fantasy books, many of the instant endings to the adventure do not involve death or failure for this one. These endings kind of include you living the rest of your life as a monk or a sailor or even a basket weaver. So yeah, without obtaining the actual revenge though. So you don't complete the book, but you don't die. So the copyright page also on the first edition lists a map by good old Leo Hartas, which is not present in the book. So let me know if you have a copy of it. I certainly don't, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. And the introduction section is missing its page numbers, which is a bit odd. But speaking of page numbers, reference 400 is not the concluding reference on this book. So yeah, we've had that before, haven't we? Where reference 400 is not the final ref. So we've got it again here, courtesy of Paul Mason. Now, also, almost every character name is actually a symbolic word or phrase, translated directly from Mandarin Chinese. So I did a little bit of research. In other words, I went on Google. So the examples include the Bocho Monastery. It translates to Revenge Monastery. We've also got your uncle and aunt, Zagoa and Ube, which translates to well-intentioned advice and preparation. The supernatural guide Mengzide is the dream guidance. The capital Shadow translates as foremost city. The rebel leader Cyan, source of water. The demonic creature Uemi is translating to fish demon. And then finally you've got the demon advisor Pantu, which translates as traitor. So yeah, there's quite a cool little idea that's found its way into this game book. Now, the errors I mentioned earlier. So one of the first enemies encountered, and if you've read this book, you know where I'm going, it's the giant mudworm. Now, it has a skill score of 12, okay? At this point, the highest possible skill you can have is 6, yeah? Because you rolled a 1d6, so you might be a 1, but the highest you can be is 6, rendering the combat impossible to win, without cheating, of course. This was an editing mistake by Mark Gascoigne. Now, Mason later referred to Mark Gascoigne as a dingbat and a total idiot, which I thought was a bit harsh, you know. Steady on, Paul. Yeah, so he forgot, poor old Mark Gascoigne forgot that you begin the book as a child. And he altered the skill score for the mudworm from 6 to 12. So yeah, making it, or rendering it impossible. Now, also, reference 230 causes you to restart the adventure right from paragraph 1, removing all notes and equipment from your adventure sheet. However, it does not change your skill, stamina and luck, ferocity or age scores, which are a little bit odd. Now, this allows you to age endlessly and potentially, you know, farm a certain amount of skill and stamina bonuses by repeatedly revisiting reference 230. So yeah, a bit of a continuity error. But let's do a summary and a score for this book. Now, the follow-up to Black Vein Prophecy, both set on the Isles of the Dawn. This book's plot requires you to encounter the protagonist from that earlier book, like I mentioned. It's a nice little tie-in to Black Vein Prophecy. The adventure is structurally and stylistically quite unique for fighting fantasy. Gameplay-wise, Crimson Tide is very hard. Putting aside the unfair dice rolls, finding the correct path is extremely tough. And there are also several red herrings thrown in there as well, for good measures. Even worse, Paul Mason likes to trick you into thinking you've taken the right path when you've taken the wrong path. So the book requires you to gather code words, not only to keep track of your progress, but it will also tell you how to beat the book. Unfortunately, the book is not very clear as to why you need certain code words. Getting some of them does not seem to add anything to your knowledge of your quest, and yet you're expected to get them to win, which is a bit odd. Initially, it can seem like you spend a lot of time going round and round, because of course this is quite an open world book. So yeah, the true path is quite elusive, so you do feel like you're spending a lot of time revisiting the same places over and over again. It's even possible to end up being sent back to paragraph 1, like I mentioned, to relive everything, but this kind of beats being told that you failed, so at least you can keep going. The way failure is handled in this book is really good, actually. The instant deaths, they're very rarely used, other than in the final section where there is this generic item checklist, you know, that you always get. You have to go through, and any ones you've missed out will lead to death, unfortunately. But in this book, there are many alternative endings as well to be found, all of which involve you getting a job of some sort instead of revenge. There are loads of these outcomes, and they offer a good alternative to simply dying, and they show that a lot of thought has gone into the design and the central themes of this book. Generally, combat is discouraged in this book, as the point is to obviously reduce your ferocity. Now, there are many opportunities to improve your stats, although only one true path will give you a decent enough skill to kind of win and see this book through. The passing of time may seem a bit jumpy also. For example, you could be told that you spend a year doing training and add 1 to your age. So a whole year or 2 can just pass by in one reference. The adventure overall is not too long, So restarting is never too much of a problem. You know, you're never going to have too far to get back to where you left off. What really makes this book worth a read, though, is the writing, which is brilliant. And you really get a sense of hopelessness from a kind of child's point of view. Mason's writing style puts atmosphere before everything. It really lets you sympathise with your character as well. Mason also throws in some quite imaginative monsters rather than the usual orcs and goblins. And to sum up, The Crimson Tide is a very well-written gamebook, lots of interesting encounters to be found and colourful characters along the way. The extreme and perhaps unfair difficulty will mean that it's not everybody's cup of tea, nor will you maybe find the idea of playing as a child that appealing, but then of course you grow stronger and older throughout the quest, so it kind of hampers to everybody's needs. However, The Crimson Tide is very enjoyable. It's a good gamebook experience. I would recommend every fan to try a copy just to see what they make of it themselves. So I'm going to give this book a very high 7 out of 10. Now, I want to give a shout out to Michael Bartlett. I have given him a shout out before, but it's so good, I'm going to do it again. So yeah, check out Michael Bartlett. I'll put the link in the description. But he is still working his way through these books. He also does live read-throughs, not just Fighting Fantasy either. So check his channel out if you fancy joining in and having a good old bash at one of these game books. And like I say, it's not just the Fighting Fantasy. He is still reviewing those, but yeah, he's getting involved. He's dipping his toes into the whole game book world. So yeah, look him up. Now, that's the end of my review. I hope you liked it. Maybe give it a thumbs up, but put a comment in here on your thoughts on this book, your thoughts of the artwork, the game design, the mechanics. Tell me what you thought of it. And if you really like it, share the channel out. But the next review will be book 48, which is Moonrunner. So catch me in that review.